Oh, are we starting?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. When did I first pick up a camera? I don't know exactly, but maybe 8 or 9. My dad studied photography in college, so he wanted me to give it a try. Maybe we could bond.
Did it work?
Yeah. Yes. And he saw that I really liked it, and then he bought me a slightly better camera for Christmas, maybe when I was 12, that shot video as well.
Oh.
So I made a lot of short films on that, and I learned to edit movies, and so then I became interested in photography and short films, and then I got the Rebel T2i when I was 15, and I used that for over a decade.
Was it hard when you finally decided to move away from it to like did you change ecosystems or did you stay Canon or
Yeah, I had a Canon PowerShot was my first camera. Then I didn't do photography for a long time, and I wanted to be a psychologist. But I came back. I tried out Nikon. It was really nice. The autofocus was so poor. I wanted something better in that area. I didn't know if anything existed. Then I found out about the new Sony mirrorless cameras. I got to get one of those. And that's the best camera I've ever had. And I'm not looking back.
Sony forever through and through. Not a bad
Unless there's a
decision.
sponsorship offer, then I have no brand loyalty.
That's right. Only to that brand that pays me.
Right.
Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Yeah. Okay. Brand loyalty. Let's see if we can establish a little bit of that on the 111th episode of the WTF Carbondale podcast, where we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives, and we tie it all back to this little old place we call home, Carbondale, Illinois. And on this particular episode, Damian, who is I'm just gonna spoil the opening line that is a Carbondalian born and raised, Carbonite. Do you have a preference to are you in on the Carbondalian versus Carbonite?
I'm not.
Beef?
Never heard that.
Or did you grow up in Makanda?
I would hear Carbondale.
Okay, Carbondale. That's
and
good.
Garbagedale.
Oh, ouch.
The other one I heard.
Yeah.
Or the Dirty Dale. That's what we mostly called it. The Dirty Dale.
So yeah, no, you're a born and raised Carbondale kid.
Yes.
Like myself.
It's very Norman Rockwell.
Yeah.
Esque.
Give me my pitchfork. And what was the other implement in the Norman Rockwell painting? There was the pitchfork and the was it a shovel or was it a?
Sure.
Why not?
A Coca-Cola brand shovel. But yeah, I grew up on a farm. I would go walk and play in the woods with my dog. It was very Norman Rockwell-esque. Good place to grow up. For me.
Has it translated well into your travels now?
Have you ever seen that movie Midnight Cowboy?
No.
Well, in that movie, John Voight plays Joe Buck, and he's from this small town, Texas place, and he goes to New York City, and he's just way too polite, and people take advantage of him left and right. I have gone through that phase. I've been through that phase when I learned, I think I grew up differently than other people with some Midwest respectable manners or naivety or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. No, I think naivety is definitely a way that it needs to be described, right? Like, because you can't just assume that the broad world around you is as interested in the well-being of others as you might find yourself to be.
Yeah, so I would be very surprised when I started doing my cold approach photography videos going up to strangers that people watching and commenting, and a few people I met being so cautious, like I was going to, like I had bad intentions with them, but of course, I'm just happy-go-lucky. Oh, gee. Oh, gee, can I take your picture? And in person, that comes through way more.
Yeah.
But some people watching, they're like, they hear what I say. Danny, you're so creepy. But you see me in person, I mean, I'm very small. I'm soft-spoken. I'm not very intimidating. And I think people, the Carbondale energy, small town Midwest energy comes through, I think, in person. Yeah.
Where do you draw your soft spokenness from?
Ooh. Well, my brother, he's a more extroverted people person. He has a lot more energy. He can be, when we were kids, he'd be loud and rambunctious, and so you can't do that.
Uh-huh.
If you're the other brother, it's like, oh, I got to do my own thing. I'll be quiet and contemplative. I'll be the good listener. I'll be, cool and collected. That's what I thought, at least. But yeah, so I guess that's where it comes from.
Younger brother syndrome.
Yeah. Let him shine.
Yeah, that's totally working right now. You're all the spotlight is totally not on you at all.
Well, I don't show. Well, I don't show my face too much.
Yeah, that's fair.
So in my videos, I'm always putting the spotlight on somebody else.
Yeah.
So when people put the spotlight on me, it's a little weird.
Is this different experience right now? Like, oh, what am I doing in front of the camera as opposed to behind it?
Yes.
I appreciate you jumping out on a ledge with me for that.
You're welcome.
Did you ever work in the family trade? Participate in some of the? Are you a skilled painter as well?
Yeah. So my dad is a rare craftsman who is addicted to working outside in the hot sun. I have other vices that aren't that. So because we do not share this addiction, that made it pretty much a non-starter for me taking over the business or being gainfully employed by my father.
Left that one up to your brother too.
Right. He's in the sun. So look at me. I'm so pale. He almost looks Hispanic. He's so his skin is so dark from being in the sun every day. So yeah, I'm more of I stay inside.
If you're not out on the street taking pictures, keep.
Yeah, this year this is the most I've been
network.
outside in my whole life, except for when I was a kid, maybe. A lot of sunscreen.
Poor thing, man. I didn't know we were gonna get down deep into like the really tough, traumatizing parts of life, but here we are, man.
Yes. Burned so easily.
Shoot. So you end up. Did you go to school for psychology as well as film and media, or what did you end up studying then? If like one of your early interests was getting into psychology versus doing what you're doing now.
Yes, my my origin story is that I was very confused, and I had no idea what to do, and I felt really incompetent and lacking in confidence as well. When I graduated high school, I just felt such an overwhelming sense of dread that I did not know what to do. My parents suggested that I go to SIU and study, film, video, movies, and I did that. And that wasn't working. I was waking up in cold sweats every night. That's weird. I had really no self-understanding and no self-awareness of, this isn't right for me for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. I didn't know that, so I'm just experiencing, I feel awful. And I'm waking up in cold sweats. I don't understand why. Then I left to go make some short films, and all that stopped, and I felt so much better for a little while, until I realized that was no way to making any money, just making some short films with my friends. That was no way to a career, and then I got all depressed again. It's like, I got to go back to school, I guess. I went back to theater. This girl broke my heart, so I left. Wow, I didn't have a strong constitution. Then I came back and tried some other stuff. I worked with the local PBS station TV show that was run out of the college, Alt News 2646. And that's where I gained most of my video and film, working on a set, having a crew, all the technical aspects, and just became a lot more honed in my filmmaking abilities. Sorry, what was the question?
No, it's all just open, man. My real, like, this brings me into an interest of, like, what, aside from the major shifts, right? Like, hey, this lot of activity is causing me anxiety and dread. I need to put this on the shelf and go pick up another bucket of activity. Like, what are the little things day to day that you've done, kind of like helping to navigate through some of these?
What are the things I do day to day to navigate through
existential dread?
The easy question.
Yeah. Low hanging fruit.
What do I do day to day to navigate my existential dread? Honestly, I get time alone and listen to music, or I'll do some writing. I'll just try to get away from people, or see my really good friends. Which are much better strategies than I used to have. The strategies I used to have were to panic, cry, go into full existential, whatever you call it, spiral of doom, and try to make myself feel better in ways that are not the most healthy and sustainable, as you learn not to do as you get older. Yeah.
It sucks, man.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Learning how to deal with those things.
Is economic anxiety a tie-in to kind of just the general components of it? I mean, is that a pretty solid underwriter of worry?
Yes, especially in New York, where your rent is $2,000 a month while you have 4 roommates. That's a grand total of $10,000 with all the roommates combined. And that was stressful. So I didn't quit. I made a tactical retreat from New York City last year. And now that I'm doing better, I should be able to return now that I know what not to do.
Kind of chew you up and throw you out on the other end type of.
Yeah, but that's just how it is. And, people send me emails and say, "Hey, Danny, I'm trying to move to New York City. What should I do?" And I say, yeah, just be prepared to fail. Be prepared to move back home after you run out of money. But then you learn all the things that you shouldn't have done, if that's the case, and then you can come back knowing, oh, this is what this place is. This is what's good about it for me. This is what is not so good about it for me. And you do the cost-benefit analysis and go from there.
Was there a reason why? I mean, was New York kind of a preferred jumping out point, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah, my friend and my friend William Banks, he is a professional comedian in New York City, and I would see on Instagram his stories of him on stage, and all of his friends are comedians, and they're all doing all this creative stuff all the time. And I was in New Orleans, and I was just a waiter. Everybody around me, mostly, they want to go out and drink. They don't really want to do the things that Will is doing in New York, where they would pay money. They pay money to be comedians and make money, but they would pay to do it. They love it so much. Oh, I relate to those people a lot more. There's not really much of a comedy scene in New Orleans, and so I wanted to go there, maybe find some belonging. That was my plan. Worked out pretty well. I'll go back. I made a lot of friends there. But yeah, there's so much opportunity there. I remember I was going through TikTok, and this beautiful Ukrainian model pops up. And I said, oh, wow, she's dreamy. I would love to do a photo shoot with her. She's a professional model. That'd look really good for me. I haven't worked with many professional models at that point. So I just left a comment, hey, would love to do a photo shoot with you sometime if you're in New York. And then 5 minutes later, she commented back, yeah, I am. Are you free tomorrow? And then we met up in Central Park, and we did the shoot. There was no middleman. It was amazing. That would have never happened in New Orleans or most other places.
Yeah. I mean, just opportunity exists by virtue of the critical mass of people in a place.
Yeah, the 8 million people. And being a creative person is so rare that you need that concentration of 8 million people just to find, 5 creative people is what it feels like sometimes. They're just such aliens that are difficult to pin down. But yeah, then I got to work with comedian Mike Birbiglia and promote his Broadway show. That wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in New York. So lots of opportunity there. Too many people. I never felt like I could get away from people. That's why I like to come home to Carbondale and walk in the woods.
In the shade in the woods, not in the sunshine in the woods.
Right. Because I'm so pale. It's true.
No, it's because sorry. It was the difference between your dad liking to work outside and you not so much.
Underneath a large hat.
I totally blanked out on the comedy side of things, man. Like I should have. I'm surprised I didn't lead with the tell me about your comedy experiences in New York. But I mean, that's how when did comedy first become a draw for you?
Well, I put on a persona like, Peter Parker, Norman Rockwell-esque, but I'm very, very, very absurd with my sense of humor. So much so that I keep it under wraps almost always, unless I'm with a few close friends, and then I'll just let it out, my natural self. So, yeah, it's always been a thing, but I felt like, I feel pretty self-conscious in trying to share it with people because it's so weird. But, yeah, it would come through short films I make, and then around college time and around I work with Alt News, my friend Julius started doing comedy, hosting comedy shows. So I got into it then, did some stand up, and yeah, it was fun. But in New York, I'm mostly the photographer, and only sometimes will I do. I'll perform sometimes. But yeah, I just like being around them. They're funny.
Draw on the energy that exists there.
Yes, indeed. I love
What-
them.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
No, and you were talking about that before we kind of clicked the cameras on, right? The interest in being, the behind the scenes producer type to projects beyond kind of what you currently, are working on, right? And that's it. Do you get the same fulfillment, or do you feel like there is an equivalence of the fulfillment that you receive working behind the camera that others receive being on stage or in front of the camera?
Well, I remember doing my first shoot for the local PBS show, Alt News, where I pitched this idea of this late night talk show that was essentially hosted by David Lynch, the bizarre, surreal filmmaker. And I thought that would be funny. And I got my friend Jonathan, who's a great actor, to play this role while I was doing test shoots. I was trying to figure out, how do I do the camera work and this and that. I wanted to be 100% prepared when we had a whole crew and all the expensive equipment and the sets. And then when we actually did the shoot, I played the David Lynch role because I thought, hey, I'm a big hotshot. I'm the director and the actor and the writer and the editor of this. I'm a Renaissance man. I'm so cool. And then in hindsight, when I watch it, I go, oh, no, Jonathan's way better than me. He's a way better comedic actor than me. I should have had him. And then I'm just disappointed that it wasn't him instead of me. And so that's how I feel nowadays. If I'm not going to do it the best, then I don't want to do it. Whereas before, I was more narcissistic and was like, oh, I want to be the main show. Then I came to realize after some experiences and some reflection that narcissism can be like a disease that robs you of the things that are more valuable in life. So I didn't just think that intellectually. I thought that intellectually, but then that became more integrated viscerally into my whole body and personality. And then I become more averse to being more in the spotlight, front of the camera, unless, I can do it the best out of, whoever we got. But usually that's not the case. So. Yeah. So that's my relationship. I'm fulfilled if it's fun, if it's making something great. I think I'm greater behind the scenes for the most part. Yeah.
Was that like the humbling experience?
Oh.
Like, let me tell you about all of the humbling experiences.
There were so many humbling experiences, and girlfriends humbling me, of telling me, Danny, there's this thing about you that it's not so great. It's like, oh, really? Wow. She's 100% right. Some tough lessons sometimes that need to be learned.
But do you resent some of the self-awareness that you've developed throughout this process? Or do you feel like, yeah, okay, everything is just a step towards the next iteration of me and the value that I'm going to put out there into the world? thank you to whatever experience I just had. Let's go have the next one.
Yeah, so I would say my self-awareness / self-understanding is probably the biggest asset that I've gained in the last few years, and I would never want to not have it, because beforehand it was much more like the relationship between a writer and an elephant. And, the elephant is much more powerful and just goes wherever it wants. But if a writer with the elephant is really knowledgeable and really understands the elephant and what the elephant wants and finds ways to, reward it with that, it can behave a lot better. It can listen to a lot more direction. Whereas before, it was just wild elephant, just stomping around with the writer that's like, I don't know, just is like this.
I gotta love it. It's my elephant. What am I gonna do?
Yeah, so I really don't want to return to that. It's like the circus. It's like a circus gone mad versus something that's more controlled and can be a business. It's a show. Now it's a show. Now I can put on a show. And the elephant can, jump through some hoops and stuff. As long as everybody goes home, and the elephant doesn't just have to perform. I know what it needs, and it's much better now that I understand myself better.
So is part of this come from having to commercialize your creativity as well? Has that breathed some structure into, or some...
Yeah.
Is it the treat to the elephant to keep it on track? I don't know how to how to connect to that metaphor the right way, but I'm trying.
Yes. Well, that gets into essentially my whole strategy for business was to do something that really wouldn't be any sort of work, that wouldn't take any willpower or effort on my part, just some pursuit that would be intrinsically motivating to the elephant, to like my unconscious, to the emotional part of me, and then it would develop a momentum of I don't even have to try. I'm just pulled toward this in a way. So for example, you could be pulled toward addicted to all sorts of things, and that's the thing that primarily motivates you. So I saw in my body, in my mind, oh, this is what motivates Danny. How can I turn that into money? Oh. So here we are.
Were there failed attempts before this? Like, we were talking before the podcast about people just having to take a run at it over and over and over again until they finally hit the thing or one of the things, right? Does this feel like surprise success, or does it feel like a decades worth of trial and error and figure something out? And I don't even know if decades worth. How old are you, Danny?
I'm 28.
Okay, cool. Perfect life of existential dread age. You're exactly where you need to be right
well,
now.
I got over the major. Last year, that's the crisis point for sure. So I got over that. So I think I'll be all right.
Good.
But yeah, to answer your question, what was your question?
Doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, failures. Yeah, every creative endeavor always lost money for over a decade. And I tried other career paths that I ran into some brick walls, which forced me to completely give up on that pursuit, at least professionally.
What were some things that you were trying to do?
Yeah, I wanted to be a writer, and some things happened that made that extremely difficult for very particular reasons. That could be a whole other episode.
Fair assessment.
I wanted to do music, but I had a incident where I lost my voice from overusing my voice, practicing too much music, and my voice was never the same. That was about 8 years ago. I could not speak for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then after that, my voice, I lose my voice very easily. So, and people ask me, Danny, why do you talk the way you talk? It's kind of this even tone, kind of quiet, and da 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 da. I found out with this tone, I lose my voice less easily. Where if I speak more expressively, like I can do lots of impressions, I can do lots of different voices, but when I do those, I lose my voice very quickly. So, yeah, vocal performance became not impossible, but I mean, I'd been to so many speech therapists and vocal coaches to the point where I thought, yeah, this is miserable. This is a tough road, and I decide to not take this one. So,
Dude,
had to find some other things.
that's tough.
And I have dreams about it, like, oh, this whole other life where I didn't have that. I had better training at the beginning with my voice because I love music so much. But sometimes you just gotta cut your loss and say, oh yeah, that's not happening. I choose to give that up 100%, and I will find something else. Thankfully, I'm interested in a lot of things, so.
Yeah, but man, like you got me tearing up over here. Like that's the thing. Like that is the, like, you know, you're right. I mean, you're lucky to have multiple muses, right? But if this is, you know, your first muse, your core muse, right? Something that no doubt has been part of your life because of the environment that your parents raised you in and the people that you got to grow up with and, you know, have been around. Like it's where this comes from. Like it is you, right? And to have to put that in a box and like keep it hidden away for safety's sake, like that's tough, man.
Yeah. And with writing, I guess I'll just say why. As I had a chronic injury with my back that happened when I was weightlifting years ago. That I can't. I'm fine now. I just can't sit down for very long. So being a writer became that's my first love, actually.
Okay.
That's number one. So becoming a writer became a very painful process, and I make the injury worse the more. Oh, I got to write this much every day. So with photography, I spend a lot of my time out about shooting videos, walking around. I'm not just at a desk all the time. I'm at a desk half of the time, or maybe a third. Yeah, half of the time. And it's not enough that it stops me. I'm pretty slow compared to some other people. There are some other street photographers that I've seen, for every one video I make, they make 8.
Mm-hmm.
8.
Velocity of content.
Yeah, so I can't keep up with that pace, so I try to make mine, less input, but hopefully higher quality. is what I would aim for to try to make up for that. Yeah. So I went with photography and video because that was what was left. That was possible for me without those two health problems. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And now the being like, hey man, can I move around and have some more space to to roll around in the chair? That makes more sense as well. That like, it's not just about being antsy. It's like there's a physical limitation here.
Indeed.
So thank you for
I'm also antsy. They compound into like a. Anyway.
No, man. I mean, that's it. Like, okay, good. on top of one thing, here is the other, and this is what makes me, spin around in a seat and not be able to be, just comfortable.
Yeah, but weirdly, all the various problems that have either forced me to quit something or forced me to keep doing something, all those have weirdly helped in weird ways that were unexpected to force me to develop in ways that I just wouldn't have otherwise. So I guess life just needed to put me in a particular corner where everything else just wouldn't work at all to force me down the way that would work. I don't know. That's more, Zen way of thinking about it, which has a lot of truth to it, though.
Well, and you're not gonna just stop living a life of being Damian. Like you're not just gonna stop being yourself because of X or Y limitation, right? You're just gonna have to work around this and do a little bit of repurposing of self, but you don't stop being you.
Yeah. Got to find a way to do something. And the only thing that I found that was doable for me when I was working as a waiter, I'm always on my feet, running around. So that never messed with my injury. So I thought, oh, well, I can always do this. I can't really do desk work unless that gets better. But so I was basically, in my head, I don't want to be a waiter, but I can make money doing this in New Orleans. That's the most available job. They're desperate. It's during the pandemic. They'll take anybody. They'll take me. I can make some money. They can make really good money there,
yeah.
Especially in the French Quarter where I worked the majority of the time. And while I was there, I got to kind of develop some social skills that is quite apparent to most people that are not natural to me in the way that I approach people. But at least I'm able to approach people who I don't know and speak words out of my mouth, which many people are quite impressed by, though not quite impressed with my technique. But that's okay. It was all good, and yes, being a waiter, that was very motivating to be successful at the video photography stuff so that I didn't have to go back to being a waiter, which is fine if I have to do that. But, it's a good motivation to be successful. When you know exactly where you're going back to,
yeah.
if it doesn't work out.
Well, and it is in ebb and flow and up and down, a never guaranteed to succeed forever sort of deal.
Oh yeah, it definitely won't. That's why I already got other plans in the pipeline to switch to, just in case. But we'll see how it goes.
Something that keeps you on your feet.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, something different. I can't do this. People get mad at me. Danny, why don't you just do these videos where you go up to strangers and you photograph them. There's such humanity. You could be the best at this. This is so great. Such authenticity. Why do you spoil it by doing these staged videos and these skits and these stupid little things that you do? Hey, I have the same opinion. When I started, I said, I'm only going to do genuine, walking up to people I don't know, completely transparent. I won't even take any money if people offer me to do, brand deals or promote something or stage something for a lot of money. I won't do that. But I did do it, not for the money, but because I was bored, because it's boring if all you do is the same thing over and over. And my love of comedy, I wanted to do something that would be funny and fun for me. And then I'll get bored of that, and I'll do something else. But yeah, I'll always be doing something different. I just can't repeat the same stuff. That's just me.
So that's an interesting thing. You don't find yourself cycling back to activity like, like let's say you do something for a 3-month period, and then you do several other things over the course of the next year that aren't that thing that you were just doing. You don't just find yourself coming back to that after a year or two.
Oh, yeah. With most things, I'll cycle back. I just need a break. I just need to do something different for a little bit. Otherwise, it just kind of dies creatively. I'm not really motivated by it. It's just not as interesting. But then I'm not done for it forever. I just need a break, and then I come back.
Is it just being away from something that helps you refresh the creative interest, or are there other things that add to or help you to refresh that creative interest?
Yeah, being away helps, but also once you get into other projects, they can unexpectedly give you ideas for the previous thing you were doing, and you make connections that you didn't expect. That's something that my favorite musical artist, David Byrne, was saying, because he does a whole bunch of different stuff. He'll do weird musicals, plays, he writes books, he does photography, does all sorts of stuff. And he said that they all connect in ways that you wouldn't expect, that can be extremely fortuitous. And I agree.
Because you've gotten to do it.
Oh, yeah, I've done everything. I'm not a painter. Weirdly, you think I would be, because that's what my dad does, but it's like the one thing. I cannot draw. I don't want to paint. It's like the only creative endeavor I'm not into. That and maybe dance. I'll dance for fun, but everything else, comedy, script writing, novels, nonfiction, short films, music, all sorts of stuff. Comic books, so many things I've tried.
That's quite wild, man. I didn't realize the depth of stuff that you've put hands on.
Oh yeah, I've written several novels. I've written a comic book it's like 150, 200 pages. I have some music albums online. Yeah, bunch of stuff.
Have you ever looked at your back catalog of work that may not have broad exposure and thought, well, what do I even want to breathe a new life into these things? Like, I don't want those 7 novels to see the light of day. Are you shitting me?
Right, yeah, no. Definitely not. Definitely not. But there are some things. For example, there are some short films that I made with some friends here in Carbondale that were very, very bad. But I find them very, very funny, and I find one of the performers particularly funny that I have a dream of bringing him back into my current videos to show the world his genius, which no one has seen. He has not pursued comedy in any professional manner, and I think it's a crime. And I think it's a waste. And I must introduce his genius to the world.
Are you going to tell me more, or is this going to be the cliffhanger of the podcast where we don't get to know your super secret big reintroduction idea of...
Well, it's my friend James Accurso, who's one of the funniest people I've ever met, who has a genius, like savant level of being able to improvise comedy that I've never seen. And I had, when I was working with him, I thought, wow, I have no idea how to harness this at all. This man is just going to go on not doing comedy and not be a professional comedian.
Because you don't know how to...
I feel responsible.
You're right.
Like nobody else is making videos with him. Nobody else is doing comedy with him. I felt like I was the only one who could see the genius. And I feel it's my responsibility to share that.
Where is this person physically at?
I think he's maybe in Michigan. So I have plans for a very funny video that I will do with him, hopefully, in the future. And we will all see the genius. I hope.
What was his name again?
James Accurso.
James Accurso, if you're watching this podcast. This is your call.
Yes. Yeah, that's something I would circle back to for sure. And I just like to work with my friends, my old friends I would make movies here with. It'd be fun. That's my main pastime here. Making silly movies.
Just to pass the time.
Yep. To make myself laugh. Practice my writing, script writing. Practice my directing. I'm not a good director. Very stressful. That's what I like what I'm doing now. It's because I don't have to depend on any crew.
Yeah.
And there's no acting involved. Really.
Well, except for some of those people you staged a video with. No, I'm just kind of...
Right. Yeah, in the stage videos, but it's not dramatic acting.
No.
It's just all silly, which is much easier than drama for me. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. No, man, this is cool. I don't know. Do you ever find yourselves in positions like this where you're talking about kind of some of the underpinnings of your creativity, or is this something that you often just kind of keep locked up and don't really talk to folks about?
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Nobody gives a shit.
Right.
Give me whatever content you're going to give me and get out of my way. I don't want to hear your backstory. No.
Indeed. Yeah, no, and people will always ask me the same questions. How did you get into photography? What was your first camera? It's not a very interesting story.
Yeah, make me feel like a jerk for starting off with that question.
No, you're fine. You're fine, but I think only other artists are interested in those type of things, really, that I've been talking about, of the little influences or the forces behind how, that drive towards something develops, or how you fail at everything else before. Oh well, I guess I'll do this because there's literally nothing left. But yeah, fellow artists, really appreciate that, and that's the group I want to be a part of. Those are the people I really look up to. Is the people I would identify as the high-performing artists, whatever that may mean. But my version of what that means, that's what I aspire to be. And the people I aspire to be around, not a lot of those people around me when I was growing up. So I felt a bit alien and confused, hence my not knowing what to do at all after high school. But doing what I'm doing now, I meet so many high-performing artists, and I go, oh, I am not as alone as I thought. They're like me. They're an alien. And that makes me feel so much better. I feel so much more belonging. I didn't realize that I needed to go meet a whole bunch of people because I lived in Carbondale until I was 24. So I just didn't know what it was like, that it was possible to find a group of people that are like you. It was not something I would find, not something I thought I would find, but I feel like I have. And I would encourage the people who feel similarly, like you look up to these artists or movie directors or musicians and it feels like they're your friends. They don't know you. You've never met them. You think about them all the time. They're your heroes, your idols. And then it feels very lonely if that's all you have. And I was just very scared, like, oh, I won't find that. I got to go, become friends with that person, but they're so famous or whatever, they'll never talk to me, so that's not going to happen. So then I have nobody. But those people exist. You just need to meet a lot more people in different places. It's just a numbers game. And you'll find people that accept you for who you are as long as you go through enough rejection. And thankfully, that's kind of built into my whole business, is meeting new people. So I feel like I'm building my little pirate crew. And then eventually, I'll have so many contacts that I'll have my own, production company of, oh, I know a person who's great at this. Have them call them all up, bring them all together. So that's the dream. Make a little troupe of the best high-performing artists that I know and trust. That is the dream. That's the long-term goal that I'm revealing to Nathan Colombo right now. Exclusive.
Yo,
this just in. Daddy did. Sorry.
Go ahead. Give it the full run.
Yeah. No.
I appreciate it from the perspective that it doesn't make me feel so crazy about what I'm trying to do, right? In the whole spiel that I gave you before this podcast, right? That maybe it's a little crazier that I'm trying to do it in Carbondale, but nevertheless, that to think that this is a possible thing to bring together a band of roving creators and eccentrics and media types and personalities and performers that like you said, it's just a numbers game. You got to do it. You got to go out there and make those connections.
Yes, and I think it's very valuable to have let's have what Mr. Nathan Colombo is doing with building this little studio Cratersdale.
Craterdale.
Craterdale.
I like Cratersdale though too. I like the S in it. It's kind of like when people pronounce Illinois. That's anywho. Sorry, I'm done.
No, you're good.
You had prophetic thoughts.
It's up, no, it's up to you. Whatever works better. But yeah, those things are valuable because, look, if my dad hadn't given me a camera, then I wouldn't have learned that at an early age. And then if there wasn't this program at the local Carbondale library where they taught movie editing and photo editing, they taught basic Photoshop, to 11, 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
And that's where I first learned that stuff, how to edit videos for the first time, was at this class at the library that they were doing for kids. And it just goes on from there. Because there were those resources available, that allowed me to learn those things at the ripe age where you soak in that knowledge like a sponge. And with the local PBS show that I worked on, it's the same thing. They had all this equipment and talented people and space to make this show that, the show's not going to make them any money.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting paid anything. Everybody's working like it's a part-time job, and they get nothing, no monetarily valuable, at least not anything at that time. It's more of a long-term investment into skill sets and connections, networks, etc. But yeah, it's only because of all those things that were available to me, the local programs that people were doing, that I was able to learn that stuff and do what I'm doing now. So I respect it. It's a great service that is needed for the creative people who really have no place in society. They're not good at anything.
And specifically having access to some of these resources, even at scale, here in Carbondale.
Yes. It's creative people. They can actually learn valuable skills. Otherwise, they make everything worse. If they're not doing something like that, like me as a manager at the restaurants, it's terrible. You don't want a creative person being the manager.
I'm just all of the wackiest scenarios that I'm envisioning in my head right now of the restaurant as a living skit. So before I jump off into the restaurant as a living skit thing, sorry to cut you off. I apologize.
Good.
So what you just described there kind of ties back into episode 4 of the WTF Carbondale podcast, if I remember correctly, almost or probably over 2 years ago at this point. The father of one of your friends, Sophia's dad, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
So Mike was episode number 4 of the WTF Carbondale podcast, Mike Baltz.
Yes.
And one of the things that we really got into, and something that opened up my mind on this early on, was understanding all of the resources that, again, at scale, exist here in Carbondale and that are generally accessible to folks who just want to seek them out. And we talked about, in larger markets, even in St. Louis, Mike wouldn't have a radio show on the local channel. He wouldn't have a weekly column in the local paper. He wouldn't have a regular segment on the local PBS station. He wouldn't have access to somebody as Shaddy in a home production studio space. All these different things that if he was just in a little bit larger space where the access to resources was just a little bit more crowded, he wouldn't be able to do all of the stuff that he's doing right now. And it's just kind of cool to think that, okay, yeah, we really do have some of this stuff here. We don't have all of it. We don't have it in massive quantities, but in relation to the overall number of people that we have that want access to it, it feels like we have a pretty good depth of service that we can get into.
Yeah, I think it's important that some place like this that's smaller, in some ways you can have more opportunities because you can take the top spot at something. Like with
Yeah.
what you just mentioned of, uh, Mr. Baltz, he has his own segment. He has his own radio show where otherwise all these people would be competing, and you may not even get the experience of doing any of that stuff because, oh, you're not the absolute best at it. However, because you don't have all that competition, you actually get to do it, and then you get way better than you would just being beaten out by everybody else.
Hey, that's how you get 4 tracks in the top 20 trop rock listings. And yeah, anyhow.
There you go. If you say so.
That's I think he shared something about that several weeks ago, that he had 4 of his songs from his latest pirate rock album in the top 20 tropical rock charts.
Hey, good for him. Maybe you don't know my connection to Sophia Baltz. She is the first professional photo shoot, the first model I ever worked with. I think I may have been 15. It was my first shoot that I got paid for. And now she is a professional model. I think she's signed with Victoria's Secret or something like that. She's super successful. She's amazing. And wow, what a great first subject for a photo shoot. And I really want to do some reunion video, maybe in Carbondale, where her and I, now 13 or 14 years later, we do another shoot and, see how we improved. That would be fun.
Well, that is the perfect spot to end this podcast on. Is an idea to pursue in the future tied to Carbondale, of Carbondale people that have gone off, done great things, and may again use this space to reconnect around their skills.
And there are many. I'm surprised. So many people I went to high school with have become so successful. It's crazy. I could go on and on. Ben Pillow, he's a successful musician. His Spotify, he's like millions and millions of, man, he's doing great. William Banks, he's a professional comedian. He was in a Judd Apatow movie. He's best friends with Conan O'Brien now. He's got his own cult, as he calls it. Emily Fink, she's a great actress in New York City and all over the place. And so many other people. That I went to school with who are just highly competent and high-performing artists. So, yeah, I'm so glad. It's a unique place, this place, Carbondale.
You just want to do my outro for me, Danny? Is that what you're telling me? Do you need to know what the outro line is?
In a world.
The outro line is "Have a good one, whatever that one may be."
Oh, okay. I was gonna do like a whole Twilight Zone.
Well, here, let me just pull
300
myself
miles.
off the screen. Let me just pull myself off the screen. The camera is now yours. The first person to get to outro their own episode of the WTF Carbondale podcast.
Imagine, if you will, a town in Illinois, not Chicago. No, that's too unrealistic. No. Nobody can imagine that.
All right, fine. I'll do my own outro. Thank you for trying, though, Danny.
You're welcome.
That I'm appreciative of. Yeah, whole podcast appreciative, because this is like, I was thrilled bumping into Danny, getting a chance to convince him haphazardly to do the podcast.
Yep, he cornered me. I couldn't say no.
But yeah, I hope you got just a little bit more out of this one, like hopefully you do most of these podcasts that we make. Have a good one, folks. Whatever that one may be.